Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Trafford Talk. Today we're doing a Premier League review. We've been away for a bit for various reasons. Cam's had a dog to look after. Robbie and me have coursework. Ahmed's been working at like every football ground in the country. And also it's just been a bit of a weird time because obviously all the Super League stuff happened, the protests happened, and yeah, the Premier League games towards the end of the season have felt a bit dead. But we're going to kind of have a little gloss over the season that's just gone. So we'll start off, Cam. We might as well because we haven't actually spoke about it yet. Second, then, not bad, is it?
Yeah, not like it's not bad, right? Like coming into the season, like and this is where now let's try and put all of our banter and hater hats aside. Coming into this season, if we said we will be second and we'll be challenging for a trophy at the end of the year, whether it be Europa, FA Cup, whatnot. None of us would have thought we were going to be a Champions League contender. So let's just throw that out the window right there. I would have said, cool, I'll take it. I'll take it because it's progress on last year, right? That's the thing. Yeah. And if we finished with less points and finished second somehow, then I wouldn't be happy. But we finished with more points. And we do know that the fixture congestion and all that kind of, I think, in my opinion, had a part to play in some of us our drop points in the last few games. But yeah, second's not bad, right? It's not what we want. I'm not going to come up here and say, yeah, I'm happy we finished second, but I'm happier we finished second than third. Like I'm happy there's progress, right? So all in all, it's a good season in my opinion. I wouldn't say it was a great season, but it was a good season.
I think it's the weird thing. There was a point where I think both of us were saying this a couple of months ago. You know, when we were second, but we were actually kind of winning every week, and it felt like it was a kind of sustained challenge second. I think for me personally, obviously it's because of the Europa League and the protests, the kind of our second feels a little less second because of the last few games that we've kind of dropped points a bit, and it's been a bit of a slog. But ultimately, we have a Europa League final to play in, and that's kind of where the season will be defined. I mean, overall, like, would you like if you were like this season, right, 1 to 10 on a scale in terms of just the Premier League alone? Where would you put it?
Just the Premier League. Sorry, I just switched my mic. Do I sound better now? I just realized I wasn't using my mic. I was using my headphone.
Yeah.
7. Recent memory, I'd give it a 7, right? If we win the Europa League, it's a 7.5. If we don't, it's a 6.5. Where we currently stand, it's a 7. And like I see what you're saying, where it didn't feel like a sustained second, but like we got those points on the board, right? That's the most important thing is we got the points on the board and we did what we had to do. I'd said it all year that I wanted us to drop out of the FA Cup. And I got tons of people being like, oh, not a true United fan. We should be challenging on all fronts. I'm like, I'm not stupid though. Like we were never going to be a deep enough squad to compete in all of these tournaments. Like look at what we had to sacrifice just to make sure we're good for the Europa League final. And even still losing Harry Maguire is a big problem. So with our rotation and what we've had to do in the league, like imagine we were still in the FA Cup a few weeks ago and we were still trying to do all these things. And along with Europa, we would have dropped maybe to 3rd in the league, maybe to 4th because we didn't have the squad depth.
That's a very valid point because if we were still in the Cup, obviously, was that played, that the final was played on the week where we had all those fixtures. So it would have been Sunday, Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday.
Yeah, and they would have moved one of the games, I have to assume, or maybe not. I shouldn't assume that because we got crunched with the schedule. So if they were gonna, let's say they did move one of those games, that just means we're crunched somewhere else, like around the Europa League final. And it's too much. It was too much with the squad. Like, look at who we put out to rotate against Wolves. Like, you know what I mean? Like power to them. They won. They went out and won the game. Alanga looked great. Telles looked great, but it was a dead rubber match, right? It's one of those matches where like players do sometimes end up looking better. Like people are like, Donny van de Beek looks so great. I'm like, to be honest, like I didn't think he deserved it. Like the penalty was a penalty, but I thought he should have shot instead of doing what he was doing, right? We're in this weird place. I think we definitely should talk about. We're going to talk about the signings and such of the year and everything, but we're in this weird spot where we know we need a lot of signings, so finishing second feels a bit hollow, right? Because like with this team next year, second's the best we can aim for. Like we're still not title contenders if we don't do bits in the transfer window.
That's the thing, isn't it? The problem we've got is we're relying on the Glazer family to invest in the club, which is kind of it's a dangerous position to be in because we know Manchester City's owners are probably going to go out and get Harry Kane among probably maybe two other players, I think.
I think that'd be it.
It's quite frightening, that, isn't it?
I don't think they're going to get two. I think if they get Harry Kane, that's it. I think they've been building the squad and the backlog for a while. They just Fernandinho re-up, so they don't need cover in that position. Rodri seems pretty durable. They got multiple center backs. Like Ake, I forgot was even there. They seem to have decent fullbacks at this stage. Like Mendy's not that good. So this is the thing. They could go and get Nuno Mendes too. But it all depends on how much Harry Kane costs, right? If Harry Kane's if the 200 mils is actually the right number, then he's not getting sold. Because City won't do that, right? If it's like 120, I could see them doing it, but then I don't know if they go and get like a Nuno Mendes, which would be scary. That left back from Sporting Lisbon, who's a young kid, looks good. But the interesting thing with City is if they go and buy Nuno Mendes, he probably doesn't even play his first year, right? Like the way they did with Cancelo. I think but that's the scary thing, right? If they just get Kane, City's so far ahead that it's like United need minimum 4 signings to be anywhere near up.
Do you think as well? I mean, obviously, because this season we finished above Chelsea and Liverpool. What do you think? So let's say they bought a couple of players. We bought some squad players. Do you think it would take them above us? So let's say Liverpool went and bought a striker, and Chelsea went and bought. Well, they seem to want a striker as well. I mean, the danger is that as well as Ole Gunnar Solskjaer has done with this group of players, is if all the other clubs get bought loads of players and he doesn't.
Well, that's the problem. We'll be left behind. If he doesn't get we need 4 signings, but we'll get 3. And if he doesn't get, but we'll actually probably get 2. He needs Sancho, and you need some midfield cover, and you need probably another center back. Truthfully, to compete with, I'm not worried about Liverpool as much as everybody else is. I think they had their time there. I think we're going to get, their drop started last year. It didn't just, it wasn't just this year. Their drop started at the end of, they've been bad for a while. So this is not I think they'll be in the mix next year, but I'm not as worried about them. Chelsea, if they get a striker, will be a problem. A serious problem if they get a striker, because realistically, nobody's scoring on them. Their system seems to be working as much as I hate it. And all they need is somebody to score goals. I don't think there's a player available for either of those teams right now to get to where they need to be, though. I think a Chelsea needs a top striker, and I think Liverpool needs a couple. They need to replace Firmino with a top striker, but those players just aren't available right now. So they'll run it back. Liverpool squad is a world-class squad. Let's not pretend it's not. But I do think it's on the downturn, where City has done a good job refreshing their team year in, year out. Well, so that's going to be interesting.
Problem with City, in it, that because they've got such unlimited money, it's like Pep's bought about 7 million fullbacks.
Yeah, he's got cover everywhere.
For managers like Solskjaer or Jurgen Klopp or Brendan Rodgers even, it's kind of the thing of, right, you get one big money centre-back and that's it. You can't have any more. If that doesn't work, that's it type thing. Because obviously Ollie got Maguire, and then now people are saying, he shouldn't be allowed to sign another centre-back. And it's like, well, actually, you're allowed to sign more than one player in that position. And Pep's gone and bought about, how many defenders has Pep bought?
Walker, Mendy, Cancelo, converted Zinchenko, Stones, Laporte, Diaz, Ake,
Angelino.
He just continues. He continues to swing, right? So defense wins titles, attack wins games, right? That's what we all talk about. And until he got his defense rate, he didn't win the title. He won the title when he had company there, obviously. But then when he lost company, fell off. Then he went and got his defense rate, and now he won the title. So it's very clear what he knows wins titles. It sucks, because they do have unlimited money, but they spend it in small chunks, so it doesn't seem like they're spending a lot. They spend 50 million, 50 million, 50 million, whereas we buy one player. We need another center back, and I mean the choices. There's a couple. I think there's 3 on the board right now, but we need Sancho more than anything. So in my opinion, you know we're going to spend 80 million on Sancho, and you already know that means that's it for marquee signings. If Varane's numbers, where they're saying 40 million is the number, if that's the number, you should be able to conceivably afford Varane and Sancho. That then leaves you probably like 25, 30 million, but then you're going to do some sales. Like you need to sell Jesse Lingard. You should sell Matic. You should sell Mata. Like you're going to sell some players. So that should leave you with enough to go get one more midfielder, preferably a CDM. But like I would just like some midfielders who could pass the ball. If I'm going to be completely honest. I think Scott had a decent season. It's unfortunate by the end of it. Yes, he started to fall off, but I think he had a good season because he scored 8 goals. He did what he had to do. Came into games. He played well in the games he needed to play well in. But then there's games where you're like, I see us being linked to like Hakan Çalhanoğlu and such. I'm like, yeah, I would like a midfielder who I could just rely on to retain the ball. We don't have that. So, and I'm not sure we're going to be able to the CDM options. Like I haven't even seen us being linked to anyone other than Rice, and with 90 million price tag, nobody else.
See, the problem I have with this is, I mean, if I'm talking about a dream summer, I'm putting Rice in there, but just purely because he seems like the only option. It doesn't seem to be anyone else that's being talked about. Obviously, Ndidi has been touted. The problem with Ndidi is he's not very good at passing the ball out and stuff like that. He gives the ball away a lot. And I think it sounds a bit weird out of context, but I think Ndidi is a better version of Fred in terms of what Fred does. I think Ndidi just does that a lot better. I mean, I said this the other day on Twitter. Do you know what, would probably turn his team into title contenders right now is Michael Carrick. Like him in his prime, just sitting there, intercepting balls, playing balls over, providing that barrier for Pogba and Bruno. I mean, well, come on, we might as well just come on to Pogba. I mean, do you think he's going to be here next season even? Sorry. And if he does go, do you even see us getting a replacement?
Pogba's staying. I think at least till next year, right? I don't think we sell him, and I think he runs his contract down. And I think we hope we can re-sign him. But to do that, we have to win. Or really threaten in the Champions League and hope that all the teams that he could go to suck. So hope that Barcelona continues to suck. Hope that Real Madrid continues to suck. I don't think he's going to go anywhere in England. I think if Pogba leaves, it's to go back abroad. Juventus, are they in Europa? I know they were.
They made 4th in the end because Napoli are a bunch of bottlers.
Oh, see, that right there, Juventus being out of the Champions League. That means another option gone. You know what I mean? It's if they're in Europa, and then yes, they're in Champions. So I think he runs his contract down. It's the right thing to do for him too. He'll get more money that way if he's not attached to a transfer fee if he decides to leave. I think right now United's the best situation for him. Ironically enough, it's not always been the case, but now with this, you could almost say patience has paid off for him because now the squad around him is good. So that's the interesting thing. It's more yeah.
Connor in the chat here. Hi, Connor. We need right-wing CDM centre-back. We just know. Yeah. That would be a Glazer special, wouldn't it? I mean, I can see them genuinely counting Tom Heaton as a major signing,
No.
And Trippier and Abraham,
I'm cool with Trippier. I'm okay with Trippier.
Yeah, I'm fine with him.
We do need a backup right back. Unless Ethan Laird's ready, I watched Brandon Williams. He's not it. So send Brandon Williams out on loan. So when we talk, let's stay in the midfield for a bit. When we talk about midfielders, is Garner, because I've been hearing mixed things. I haven't watched him play or anything like that, but I've been reading about him. Is he going to be good enough to potentially give a shot at that CDM role?
So he's been a very good performer in the Championship. But I don't watch loads of him. I've watched some of him this season, but there's a really good account on Twitter. He's called United Dan. I think he covers a lot of the under 23s and stuff. But the consensus from him and other kind of people who work in under 23 sector of United is that Garner needs a Premier League loan before coming to United, which makes sense. I mean, I think he's really good, but he might just need.
Yeah. So when I think about our midfield, then we have to find a DM somewhere. My pick, like my ideal, like my complete ideal, if Pogba goes next year, then we talk about replacements. There'll be plenty out there that you could think of, like Sergei Milinkovic-Savic. You could look at even Hannibal being potentially Yerli Tillmans. There'll be players out there that you could go and get. Next year, though, for the DM role, I'd want Ruben Neves. If it seems like there's a bit of unrest there at Wolves. They're starting to sell players. They tried to be good this year. You know when small teams get chest and they go and buy players and they try to replicate whatever magic they had the year before. So the Wolves tried that. They couldn't hold on to Jota, but they're like, we'll go get Fabian Silva. We'll go get Nelson Semedo. We'll still be good. We'll be a top 10 team. Yeah, the magic's worn off. So
yeah, do you know what? It's kind of shocking how bad like Wolves have been, because people see them as like this kind of like plucky underdogs, but ultimately they've got this dodgy deal with Jorge Mendes, and they've been allowed so much money to spend, probably more than most teams, and they have like brilliant players, and yet they came like 13th. And yeah, I think you're right. Like, I think that team might get broken up a bit now because Nuno's obviously gone. Do you know what? We'll come on to this. We might as well. This is slightly off topic, but I don't rate him as highly as a lot of people do. Watching Wolves is very painful because they play such a conservative style of football, but they've got such exciting attacking players. I mean, he's getting talked about for the Tottenham job, but I don't personally see the point of sacking Jose Mourinho and getting Nuno Espirito Santo. I mean, what's your thoughts on it?
I think he plays a bit more attacking than Jose. I think losing Jimenez really messed him up. His whole style of play was to build it. Connor, he agrees with you. I don't know if he's overrated. I think he's properly rated. If he goes to Tottenham, that would be properly rated in my opinion, because I don't consider Tottenham a big team anymore. Not right now. No. So losing Jimenez really hurt his style of play. He was very much like get the ball out to Traore, whip balls in, Jimenez on the end of it, make something happen. Jimenez is also a pretty good creator as well, right? Like I think Traore went all year without scoring a goal this year. So it's like he could be overrated if people are considering him to be a very top manager. But he did do bits with Wolves. He did win the championship with them. He brought them up from league. So he did well with them, but it's just like any of these managers, like Hasenhüttl for a bit was considered to be everyone was like, best manager upcoming, better than all this shit. So I would say he's properly rated to answer your question. And I do think like if we can go in and go, because I can see players like Podence or Neto or Neves, like all these players being available for the right prices. So
yeah, I mean, like Neves would be a great buy, and it's interesting. I'm just slacking off all the managers in the Premier League now. It's interesting you brought up Hasenhüttl because he's another one that I think Nuno's actually a better manager than Hasenhüttl, even though I don't particularly rate Nuno. But Hasenhüttl they were bad. They lost 9-0. They had a good run. They lost 9-0 again. And then like their form is dreadful. And he's yet another one who loads of people have gone, Hasenhüttl's got to replace Ollie or he's got to get the Tottenham job. They finished really low down in the league. 15th.
Yeah, he's overrated. He's heavily overrated.
He's got really good players like Danny Ings and James Ward-Prowse. But he's got... and
the defense there was pretty good. Vestergaard and Bednarak were pretty good for a bit.
Yeah. And they've got a good side. Shea Adams is a decent footballer. Yet, I mean, they're finishing in the kind of Newcastle realm. And obviously Newcastle were viewed to be having a terrible season. I mean, this is so spot on. I think we need to talk about Sean Dyche. Sean Dyche is obviously not the most progressive manager in terms of the way he plays, but probably in terms of what he does with what he's got, he's like up there with the best in the league. He has the lowest budget.
Bruh.
He never gets any signings. He has an aging team.
I hate Burnley so much.
Oh, mate. I hate them as well. Honestly, they're awful to play. But Connor's bang on. Sean Dyche is better than both of them because what he gets out of his group of players, I mean, we've seen it across this season. like the reason we hate Burnley is because they're so bloody hard to play against, aren't they?
Yeah, but okay, it's Sean Dice is the definition of just boring. Like everything about Burnley and him, and like I like his like swagger and the way he approaches the game, the way he's kind of like he's got that hard nosed blue collar feel to him. I do like that about him, but like the football they play is dreadful. Burnley's one of those teams that every time we play, like we hate playing against them because yes, but this is the whole 10 man in the box thing. I can't stand it. Basically, not ever attacking. Like they just hope to hit you on like a lucky counter. They don't even play counter. The thing is, when I watch Burnley, it reminds me of there was a Simpsons episode way back when I was younger, and they were making fun of soccer, and there was just like guys passing the ball back and forth and nobody attacking. Yeah. That's how I looked at it. 7 out of 10 for our season, I think he's talking about.
Yeah, that's fair.
If that's what you're saying, Gary, then I agree. That's what I said to start off. But yeah, I have no love for Burnley and Sean Dice.
No, but do you not think? See, if we're talking about a team like Tottenham, right, and you're given the opportunity of either having Sean Dyche, Hassan Hutel, or Espirito Santo, and style of play isn't an issue because Santo plays badly, I think you would surely give Sean Dyche at least the opportunity. It might not go well. Like, obviously it didn't go well with Moyes, but the guy has done wonders on the budget he's on. I mean, you look at teams like Fulham, who go straight back down when they spend loads of money, that struggle.
Yeah, these pretenders.
Yeah, and obviously we'll link it back to United here. We don't have the second best squad. Well, yeah, that's a good point. And
we don't have the second best squad, but based on, so we're talking about managers. Let's talk about Ollie. Let's talk about the year coming in on what was expected of Ole Gunnar Solskjaer and what we're seeing. Like coming in, everybody it was actually, I'm not just making this up. This isn't just Twitter, like Twitter fingers and such. Betting odds, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer was the favorite to be sacked by Christmas. Yeah. He was the favorite to no longer have a job or be in a job. He was ripped to shreds by every pundit out there. Everybody, like even Rio was walking back his comments, was like, oh, maybe I should have said them. And then look, I'll never forget his comments where he's like, mountains are made to be climbed. I will be a success here. Like if there's one thing that man's always been is confident in the face of like people coming at him. Like he's got to deal with journalists being like, people don't think you're good enough. Like, what do you have to say to that? It's like, fuck you. Like, I don't know. Like, what do you want me to say to that? Like, we'll see what happens. Like Maguire said, I will be judged if I was a success at the end of my career at United in 5 years, not in the first 3 years. So I think Ollie, if I were to rate his season, the bookies made tons of money on that.
Yeah,
like, tons of money on that. If I was to rate Ollie's season, I'd say for United, I think our season's a 7 out of 10. But for Ollie, I'm probably going to give him an 8 based on what his expectations were. If he wins, he's got to win Europa League. If he doesn't, then I might lose patience.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting, isn't it? I think we're talking then about, when he was Bookie's favourite to be sacked. And the one I've been thinking as we've been talking, obviously, the like most important games of the season. You think obviously stuff like City and Tottenham, but one that really stands out to me. Do you remember when we went to play away at Everton and it was strongly rumoured he'd be gone if we lost that, and we won really resoundingly 3-1.
3-1. Yeah.
And afterwards, he said they're not going to see us lose again, and we didn't lose for about 3 months.
Yep.
I mean, like in terms of kind of games of the season, obviously we touched on the Everton one that felt significant. What's your kind of? I know it's impossible to pick. What would be your favourite game of the season?
My favourite game of the season. Well, the Roma one was just fun. It was nice to feel. You know how we had continuously just been up and down, right? Like you're thinking, okay, there's no way we could go down again and come back and win all the. Like we just done it all year. That's what's a credit to Ollie is the mentality he's instilled in the players. Like they went down every game, and you can't. People are like, well, it's the manager who doesn't have them up for the game to come out and play. I'm like, I think it was more the players being complacent half of the time, and then probably getting a kick up the backside. My favorite game would be the Roma one. That was a great game, but I really enjoyed the Leeds United one because Adam Matsich was on. He reminded me of this game on the terrace. Like that game was fun. Like we at no point did we just were destroying them. It's like we came out and we put the flag in the ground and we said this is it. And that was probably one of my favorite games. That one and the Roma game. I really enjoyed those games.
The Leeds game was kind of like it reminds me how Liverpool used to be.
Oh, and the Liverpool FA Cup. Sorry,
yeah,
Liverpool FA Cup. That game was just good. That was just a good game from.
It was really fun to watch, wasn't it?
Yeah.
And that Leeds game was literally do you remember the early days under Klopp where you'd watch Liverpool play someone and you go, my God, they're 3-0 up after 10 minutes. What's going on? And they're just pressing the living shit out of other teams. And you're like, what's going on here? And yeah, I think that game was really satisfying, not just because it was Leeds, but it was another manager, Ollie, kind of outwitted, because Bielsa got his tactics horribly wrong in that game. I mean, my friend is a Leeds fan, and we were watching it at the pub, and he was quite optimistic. And within 3 minutes, he wanted to go home, bless him. McTominay had scored twice in 3 minutes, and he was just really upset. And he was going, why are we playing so open against probably the best counter-attacking team in Europe? It was really bizarre. I mean, would you say as well, I'm just thinking, do you remember that game against Aston Villa where we won 2-1? We were holding on at the end and we went top of the league.
I don't remember, honestly, I don't remember that one as much. I don't remember that one. I should, because I remember going on stream after that and being pretty excited, being pretty happy about the fact that we were top of the league and giving everybody the business there. I don't remember the game fully. The City one I remember more than that one, to be honest. Beating City 2-0. It's just these are the games where it's funny when you look back on our season, you look back on Ollie and you look back on what people say they hated his football or whatnot. That's the big knock, right? Everybody talks about, you can't talk about the results as much because the results are pretty good. It's the how we play. No team in England has scored more goals than Manchester United other than City, right? So I think even across Europe, we've created and scored more goals than I think everybody except City still. I think it's still in Europe. So these weird, listen, I understand it's not always the most beautiful free flowing football because of the way we have to play with the double pivot. And that's just because Ollie looks at his team and he's like, who else can I put in there? This is what people don't seem to understand. It's the Glavers didn't go out and buy Ollie midfielders that would make it so he doesn't have to play Scott and Fred. We have to play Scott and Fred. This is what people don't understand. He looks at the team sheet and he's like, I guess I could maybe put Matic out there today. But then he's done for 6 weeks because he can't run. He's Matic's legs go. I think, I don't know. I would say Ollie, did a good job this year. And then back to the games of the year, in all the games of the year, the games that we won, we played beautiful football. When we beat Liverpool, we played wicked football. When we beat City, we played wicked football. When we beat Leeds, we played. These are all examples where I always hear fans say well, we're not dominating games. I'm well, we did dominate those games, and those were all.
We won one game 9-0.
Who would be the obvious answer is Bruno Fernandes for everybody, but player of the season, we haven't really talked about who would be our player of the season, and who would you be? And if you're watching, let us know who your player of the season is.
Yeah, do you know the problem with this is it's obviously Bruno, but because it's such an obvious answer, you kind of want to say someone else.
Yeah, it's outside of Bruno. Even in the comments,
should we just say it's Bruno, but other than Bruno?
It's Bruno. We know it's Bruno. So there's outside of Bruno, who would you be taking as your player of the season?
I think probably it's probably Luke Shaw, isn't it? I think
I'm going to go with Harry Maguire.
That's a solid shout.
I think I'm going to go with Harry. And the only reason it was always going to be Luke Shaw for me until recently, where we lost Harry Maguire and holy shit, we suck. On defense without Harry Maguire. It's funny because I've always backed him. I've never had a Harry Maguire agenda. I've never called him a fridge or any of that. I've always thought he was the very important signing for us. Yeah. And if I'm going to go out, so he played every game. He always wanted to play every game. And it ended up hurting us because always this is the problem when you have player managers. Yeah, Baz, I think he was majorly essential. I think that this is the problem when we look at a player like Harry Maguire and and a manager like Ollie. Ollie was a player, so if a player's always telling you he's good, he wants to play. A manager like Ollie's like, all right, then I'm going to play you because I need you and you're fit, and why wouldn't I play you? Problem is, then you get hurt, and then this is what happens, right? So he should have been rested. Not saying the injury was like a stress injury or whatever. It was a weird one, but it's just the nature of the beast. If you're playing that many games, it's almost
going to happen eventually,
right?
It?
Like AWB is going to get hurt next year. Like law of averages say, there's absolutely no way AWB, and he's got a shout for my player outside of Bruno for the year too, because he played every single game. The only problem with him is he just can't track a ball over the top. It'd be really nice if he learned that skill set at some point.
Yeah, it's interesting that, isn't it? We've been conceding a lot of goals that are exactly the same.
Exactly the same.
On the top of him, and
yeah.
I mean, we'll go. So you've gone for Maguire, I've gone for Shaw, and the reason I think that's very interesting is because while I know both of us have actually been quite supportive of those players throughout the season, I mean, if you cast your eye back to Tottenham 6, Manchester United 1, which was probably the lowest point of the season. In fact, it was, wasn't it? I mean, people were getting on Maguire's back so much, you know, and
he was bad.
he was poor, but it was like my problem with this is a problem kind of with football as a whole. Really, is one big kind of YouTuber or pundit or whoever it will be will say, "Oh, Harry Maguire wasn't very good today," or "Pogba wasn't very good today," and then everyone gets on that bandwagon and starts watching games through the lens of thinking, "Oh, it's Maguire's fault." And maybe we're all guilty of it a bit. Maybe if we do have a slight agenda against the player, like we go, "Oh, it was," you know, I used to say it's Fellaini's fault, you know, because he was
Fellaini.
He was interesting, wasn't he? God, but like. I think Maguire, he's probably been as good as Diaz this season. Obviously, that's quite a...
not quite, but close. So the thing about that Tottenham game, though, let's be honest, like, what killed Maguire in that game was the full-on removing of Luke Shaw from because this is before I think we weren't down to 6 men. We were down to 10 men yet when this goal happened, I don't think. Correct me if I'm wrong. I might be wrong. But when Maguire basically body slammed Luke Shaw out of the way, Luke Shaw was about to clear the ball, and then it goes into a Tottenham player, they score, and you're just like, it's like that. So that's what hurt him.
I think the reason why that game happened was incredibly, the reason I think it was is because he didn't play McFred. He played a midfield of Matic, Bruno, and Pogba, which you go, that's good. You've got to remember, Pogba hadn't recovered from COVID at this point, so he shouldn't have been playing. You played wingers that didn't track back. And it was just obviously the defence was bad, but the defence didn't have much chance because they had no protection at all. The wingers weren't tracking back. And Jose Mourinho basically sat down with his players and went, all right, those wingers won't track back. There's not a lot of tackling going on midfield. The defenders are going to be tired, just ping balls in behind. Go out there, and they won 6-1. I mean,
okay, we started off nice. The red card definitely killed us. Like, we should never have lost 6-1, but the red card killed us. And I'm not gonna lie, Eric Bailly was also atrocious on that day. That was everybody. Remember, everybody was crying out for Eric Bailly to start. That was one of the games for all of YouTube, all of the Twitter armchair managers, our whole fan base was just like, Eric Bailly has to start over Lindelof. Eric Bailly starts, gives one away. Like, handed a goal. Like, one of those goals was directly Eric Bailly just kicking it to a Tottenham player. Like, so it's just, for me, that game was, as much as we're trying to say, like, the lineup, I just think the defense was atrocious that game, and they fell apart more and more as the game went on, in my opinion. And it hurt Maguire's, but then after that, he was great for the rest of the year. He was very good. So
yeah, he was great for the rest of the season. And do you know what? Like, I completely agree with this comment. I think if you put Maguire alongside someone as good or better than him, I mean, even aerially or overall, like, you've got a centre back that people suddenly look at and go, he's really good, because it's been difficult for him. Because, I mean, right, let's talk about Lindelof, actually.
Let's.
So my view on Lindelof is he's probably never going to be a top centre back. I think we've all worked. I mean, we all worked that out. But a lot of our goals this season, a minority of them, maybe not a lot, have come from his passing from the back. And we notice when Bailly plays instead, for example, it just doesn't happen. I mean, how would you rate Lindelof this season?
6.5. It's not just the passing; it's we had I think 3 goals where he just got bullied, bullied off the ball, just completely removed from the situation, and it was always by unknown strikers. I think West Brom it happened. I think at Fulham it happened. It's always just a random striker that you're like, how is this man looking at you? And your nickname's the Iceman. What? So he had maybe a 6.5. I gotta say, I can't give him too low because again, we did finish second and we did win some games, but this guy was atrocious this year in some situations. He's just very weak. He reminds me of basically he's a perfect backup for Maguire because they have similar skill sets, except Maguire's better. Lindelof is a good passer of the ball, good at taking the ball, and he's actually good at organizing a defense. He runs the Swedish, he's the lead center back there, but he's not a United starting level center back. We got finessed hard by Barcelona a few years ago when Barcelona was we're interested in him, we're going to come in for him. I was why didn't we just let him in? Cool, how much? That's what we should have done instead of the whole new contract. But I do think having him at the club is good. I think he's good enough. But we need to, if I'm going to pick, I'd want Pau Torres probably as my center back, just because the Varane deal just feels a little bit like posturing. It feels a little bit maybe I'll come to United, but it feels like he's going to get a new contract and go to stay at Real. So Pau Torres would be my choice. Koundé's too small for me. I know he can play right back and the height shouldn't matter, but you can't teach size. And in the Prem, you do need size. If you're 6 foot tall, you're barely taller than Rashford. And I mean, the Prem's just it's a different beast, right? So
yeah,
I don't expect Koundé to be dribbling through mans and trying to score. I've seen him, some of the highlights people show. I'm that's not what I want him here for. I want a defender who defends, and Pau Torres defends. And we'll get to see a good look at him on Wednesday.
Well, we do. I mean, hopefully he won't put in a good performance on Wednesday. I mean, this is when you think about players this season, this is the massive debate that is never going to go away until this is decided. David De Gea, Dean Henderson. So we'll start with De Gea. If you were to rate his season overall, what are you going for?
Probably a 7 point. But he didn't. So this is it's so hard because I have to block out the noise, right? I have to block out the noise and see. Yes, there were some games like the Everton game, which was my low point of the season. That game, very bad. The Sheffield United game, and you could give him a pass because you can only give him a pass because the league came out and said they screwed up. But for real, if you were just stronger on the day, David De Gea, you would probably won that game. But the league did come out and say we messed up. Both of the one bet, the goal should have stood, and their goal shouldn't have stood. So it's hard to. Outside of that, he's been solid. So I'd give him a 7.5. But I also would give Dino a 7.5. I don't think. If I'm going to start with David De Gea, I don't think Dean did enough to take the job. That's just my opinion. And I was more than happy for it to happen because David De Gea would get us some money. So at this stage, if Dino's not happy rotating with David De Gea, because that's what they're kind of doing. It's not even cup tournament and league anymore. It's they've been swapping back and forth. Also, Dean Henderson should never wear that baseball cap on the pitch again. I hate that.
That was not a good look, was it?
He did 2 games in a row. His contract is what makes his season important if you cross-reference. Yeah, this is the thing. The contract was a legacy contract. We gave him that contract as you know what? You saved us for the last 5 years. I know it's not good business, but sometimes you do have to do it in sport. And I think that's what his contract was. So I was never upset about it because at the time we couldn't let him go. We didn't know what Dean Henderson was. You don't let go a keeper as good as David De Gea when your team's not that good, in my opinion. So I think he got a 7.5. I don't know about what was your take on his season, Alexei? What do you think?
Yeah, he had some howlers, didn't he? It's difficult because I think he deserved to be dropped when he was dropped because he was terrible. But then as soon as he was the one that was dropped, you look at him going, God, he deserves to be in the team. Like Roma away, he was so good.
Yeah. I forgot how good he was. He was very good.
It made it was like 2018 De Gea. And it's a really difficult one now because we're coming to a head with this situation, aren't we? With De Gea and Henderson. Which way do we go? I don't think they're both here next season because De Gea is not going to want to be a backup goalkeeper, and Henderson has pretty much come out and said he ain't sticking around forever. If you were Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, I know this is an impossible decision to make, and you had to keep one but sell the other, who are you going for?
Whoever fetches me the most money.
Mm.
A keeper's not in. It's not a position enough that we have to worry about in the sense that the money should trump everything in the situation. We have so many holes that we need to build in the squad. We have two great keepers. Whoever is going to get me the most money to help rebuild the squad is who I saw. So if it's David De Gea is fetching me 40 million, I saw David De Gea. I use that to reinvest. I go and get a CDM to protect the defense in front of him. I go and get another center back, and I hope that at least will make Dean Henderson good. The problem is Dean Henderson will never be as good as David De Gea was in his prime. I'm sorry. Like, if people think that, it's like Dean Henderson's 24 or something by this point. David De Gea was considered the best keeper in the world. When he
I think we'll never. I mean, on his day, I've never seen a keeper as good as De Gea. In terms of
that's just
he was ridiculous.
Neuer, Casillas, Casillas, you've seen some of these guys you have, but that's the thing. On his day, the reflexes that David De Gea had, we'd never really seen from most keepers. Mm-hmm. So I think the answer is I don't have an answer in the sense of I don't have a preference. It really comes down to the money now. So if David De Gea's contract's hurting us and we need to sell him because we need to pay Paul Pogba, then you sell David De Gea. If Dean Henderson's kicking up a fuss and some team, unfortunately Chelsea went and got a keeper, but some team that needs a keeper comes in, maybe Arsenal or somebody is like, we'll give you 40 million for him. I saw Dean Henderson.
Yeah, I mean, I completely get where you're coming from with the financial sense, but I think inevitably you've got to, the way I see it is De Gea is on a lot of money. He's on 300-400 grand a week. He's not getting any younger. I just think if we were to keep De Gea and sell Henderson, it's just kind of it feels like we're wasting what we have with Henderson, because what we have with Henderson is a goalkeeper who can come straight in without us having to spend a lot of money on one as kind of a long-term option. I mean, like you said, you could argue that Henderson hasn't done enough to take.
When's Oblak's contract up? I'm going to look this up. Because, the way I look at it, 4-year contract, keeping it to club till 2023. When's David De Gea's contract up? Contract. 2023. So, if we're gonna go to hypotheticals here, yes, David De Gea will probably decline. I agree with that. Yes, his athleticism is what he relies on, but he hasn't lost that part of his game. What David De Gea has lost is his concentration, because we saw in Roma, he still got the athleticism. He still gets to the balls. He just lost his concentration, and he needs to come out more. Hypothetical situation: if you keep David De Gea, and you don't, and you have intermediaries talking to Jan Oblak. I don't know if you've ever seen it, but Jan Oblak flirts with United a lot. He's made a lot of comments about being, you never know, would be happy to come here, XYZ. If in their final year, Jan Oblak's I'm not signing a contract, and David De Gea is cool, I'm not going to be here next year, you could easily work out a deal with Atletico to send David De Gea home. And you could easily do that as a swap with some cash involved, being listen, Jan's already said he's out, and we're going to get him next year for free. We'll wait. Donnarumma, players are sometimes, this is what they're doing. They're running their contracts down. So if it comes down to a year out and he still doesn't sign the contract, you go, listen, we'll give you David De Gea and 20 million or 30 million, whatever it is, 40 million. I've been thinking a lot of long-term with this team where it's yes, you could keep Dino, but even still with Dino, I would still, in a couple of years, I'd look at Jan Oblak. I would still be, this is I'm looking at Jan Oblak as a keeper to come in a couple of years to be our keeper, because he's just the best in the world and I want us to have the best keeper. Enough about keepers. I want to talk about our forwards. How did our forwards rate this year when we talk about like Greenwood, Rashford? Obviously, the Cavani, Martial, we don't have to talk too much about Martial. We've already.
Yeah, well, yeah.
But between Greenwood and Rashford, because both of them at different parts of the season have been maligned and kind of attacked, which I think is completely unfair for both players. I'll start with Rashford. I think Rashford, he's had 16 goals across all competitions, was it this year?
Yeah.
And like 7 assists, was it?
Mm.
So 23 goal contributions from your left winger, left inside forward, because he plays all over the line, and he's been pushed out right a lot to accommodate the fact that we don't have a right winger. I think he had a decent season. I'd say 7 probably out of 10. Again, I'm not going to give him more than that because I've seen Rashford score 20 in a season, and I've seen him have a better role. And yes, he had some games where he was poor, but I don't think he deserves the criticism he got this year. But I don't know about you.
Yeah, I think Rashford, obviously, he gets a lot of criticism, but if you look at his output, it is really, really good. And yeah, I think obviously he's been struggling with injuries the whole season. I mean, for well over a year, he's been carrying an injury while he's been playing. And I'd give him a 7 or 8 because it's quite clear when he plays football for us, we are a much better team. Like he is just such a talented player. And I think, obviously he has off games, but quite often he has an off game and then still scores a really good goal or gets an assist. And it just feels to me like he's kind of like molded into that star player mode now, hasn't he? Like the way Ronaldo used to be, where it's like, oh, it's Rashford on the ball. Look at him. He's just got even the stature.
Yeah.
The way he stands over free kicks, the way he runs.
Just the way he does that step when he pauses before he runs at a player. He just stands up pretty tall before he takes somebody on. I love when he does that. I'm like,
that's exactly it. That kind of stature he has. He feels like a star player. And obviously I think Mason Greenwood, obviously the first half he struggled because
a lot.
Various things going on because I think, the press were being awful to him. Obviously, Sun newspaper went for him. He lost his friend to suicide, and he kind of had that inevitable kind of consequence of he had a really good first season. But I think if you look at him in recent weeks, he scores pretty much every game, and I think we've got to remember the guy's 19, and I think I give Greenwood an 8. I mean, I don't know. What do you think?
I give him an 8, and I also think it's super. Like I was looking at the best teenagers in Europe list or whatever, and they dropped Greenwood off of it, and I was just like, this is ridiculous. I was like, this is like under 20s or something. They had like a bunch of, I don't know. It was a terrible list in my opinion. Greenwood would get an 8 for me because he learned how to play, like he learned how to impact the game just by not also just scoring, right? Mm-hmm. Like last year, he was wicked for us because he was just banging in goals, but he wasn't doing much else, right? He wasn't providing too much width because he was kind of always cutting in. So he wasn't always out. He wasn't always in the right position. He wasn't supplying a lot of assists. He was actually being kind of greedy. But yeah, like this is a good point. His sophomore slump, which you see from a lot of players, like it would be technically his second year in the first team. A lot of the times you see a drop off in players like that because what we saw with Greenwood is players had figured him out. The step overs, the cut, you can always tell what he was going to shoot. He was very predictable. So players were getting a block in now versus last year. People were like, oh, go ahead. You could shoot from there. That's cute. Go ahead. You could. And you learned, you're like, you can't let Greenwood shoot. Like you cannot. Greenwood is one of those players you can't let shoot. So when I think about Mason Greenwood, I think he had a great season because he started to impact the game differently. You didn't see as many like Cavani throwing his hands up, looking at him being like, you didn't see as many Rashford being like right here squared. He was making those plays. There are times where
he's matured, hasn't he?
The nickname Starboy is awesome. And there are times where he still had that like, I'm still going to take it on and shoot. And I'm cool with that, right? Like there's which game was it? Was it Tottenham where he blasted one and it just went off Lloris's hands? It's just like, you're like, yeah, that's why you let him shoot. So he gets an 8 for me. Rashford a 7. Martial, I don't know, like a 1. I mean, I feel bad for the guy not being able to go to the Euros. I really do because that's all he ever wanted.
It's really sad for him, actually. That, and I mean, I like the guy, but he's not been good enough. That's a really good point with Greenwood, because obviously when he first burst onto the scene, it was kind of like no one knew what he was going to do. But then they found out, but now he's changed his game a bit, and he's more all round. He's matured, a bit like Rashford matured. So we're going to finish on one man. There was a song about this man that goes, give it to Eddie Cavani.
Okay.
And watch him score all the goals. Now, I was.
I'm gonna have to learn these songs before I come up there.
Yeah, so I was at Old Trafford on Tuesday night for Manchester United Fulham, first game back in 14 months. I was sat in the North Stand by the Stretford end. I saw Bruno play a pass to Cavani just past the halfway line, right in front of me, and I saw Cavani dink it, and it felt like it was in slow motion. I was just staring at the ball from where I was sat. I was going, "No, he's not done that." I was like, "That he's not done that. Like he can't have done that." But he did do it. He did it. I mean, so for me, it's crazy because a few months ago, I had some problems with Cavani. I had a bit of beef with him because I thought he wasn't really doing enough. He wasn't about enough. But can we just, how good has he been in the last few months?
Signing of the season.
Yeah.
You know, and it's a tough one between him and Telles because Telles had an indirect impact where, like, you pushed Luke Shaw to be that good. But Cavani's impact's just been, I think between him and Bale, they have the best goal percentage, like, per game. That Southampton game, that's a game that actually might have been one of my favorite games. Just for when Cavani came on and scored the one goal, and then he scored the next goal, and you're just like, wait a second.
Do you know what that was like? It was like he kind of went, "All right, I'll sort this out for you then." You know,
yeah, it's like Ollie, like, come on, let me go handle these guys. Like, this is Southampton. You trust me. Just put me in, coach. And it was you talked about that star stature with Rashford. Cavani has that stature too, and Cavani's on the pitch, and the hair. He works so hard. He's been a 9 out of 10 for me this year when he's played. Like, the injuries, obviously, but he's 33, hadn't played soccer for 9 months. Like, what do you expect? Like, there was going to be a bit of a drop, and I do think he's the reason why we don't need to look at a striker. But man, has he just been so, like, the celebration, the swagger. I want to see more of him with fans in the crowd. Like, just after he scored that goal, I just loved how he was like, "Let me hear it." Just runs to the crowd. He knew it. He was like, "I haven't got to score a goal," and that was all his big thing. He's like, "I can't wait till he scores a goal in front of the Stretford end." First game.
And he did it. He did it. I celebrated that goal as much as I've celebrated anything. I was just screaming, and he just came over to us and he did his little, his El Matador thing, and he's just. I feel so ignorant because I didn't think he'd be this good. I thought we signed a 34-year-old forward. He might be all right, but I don't think anyone thought he'd be this good, did they?
We were all upset that he got the number 7. We're like, okay, so I am of the vein, though. I truly believe that we waited till the end of the season to make this signing. Like, I think it was always going to be on the cards. I do think so. I think the only way we may not have done it is if we got Sancho and it was like we don't have money to pay his wages. But I think it was always like, you can go to Benfica, but wait till you hear from us. Like, wait till we tell you no. So I think he was always waiting to come to United because why was he still available? Like, when the seasons had started everywhere and he could have gone to other teams. Why was he still available? I truly believe he was just waiting, and he had multiple deals. And he's like, I'll take the United one first and foremost. But they were, so I had no idea. I thought he'd score maybe 10 goals. What did he end up with? 16 or something?
Yeah.
I thought he'd score maybe 10 goals. He'd be fighting with Martial for the spot. Like, we'd probably go with Martial most games because of the pace and just because he's the future, and he'd be a good second option, like that kind of striker. And then you're like, week in, week out, we're sitting there being like, Cavani has to play. Like, Cavani has to start. We're like, Cavani needs to be in like his movement. He's definitely taught Greenwood some things. He's made the whole front line better. Like, we're scoring bags of goals, especially when he's on, because of his movement so ridiculous. It opens up things for Bruno. Just having somebody who's going to be a runner like that. And let's be honest, he's missed a lot of chances too. Like, he is one of those strikers who needs a lot of chances. Like, Arsenal game is his fault. We didn't beat Arsenal. Like, he had 2 gilt-edged chances. 2, like, where you're just sitting there like, Cavani, come on.
That feels like so long ago now, though, because now he scores with every bloody shot he takes. And I just love his headers where he's just like Superman, just diving through the air and he just heads it in. But I think, I completely agree. He's signing the season. But just to like finish off, what's your? I know we mentioned this earlier, but just to kind of sign off, what's your overall rating for the Premier League campaign this season?
So if we're just talking Premier League, it's probably a 7.
Yeah.
It's probably a 7. I really believe Twanzebe played well. Yeah, I'm the biggest Axel Twanzebe hater, Bass, so it's like I'm the worst person to talk to about Axel Twanzebe. But it's true. Like I just think, Cavani was great, and my rating on the season would be a 7 for us. Not winning a domestic cup brings it down. If we're keeping it in Premier League, if we win the Europa League, obviously, and extend it to the whole year, it's like a 7.5 for me because it's still not a big enough trophy. But yeah, that's basically it for the season for me. And I want to end off with saying we need these 3 signings: Jadon Sancho, Ruben Neves, Pau Torres. Those are the 3 signings we need. If we get those 3 signings, or if we get Varane, I'm happy. If we get Koundé, I'm happy. I won't be mad at it. I still would prefer Pau Torres, not over Varane. I just don't think it's real. I don't know what for you. I want to hear who are your 3 signings that you want us to get. You're a Kane man, aren't you?
No. I'm actually going to jump on board your Neves bandwagon because I've been looking for someone I can say instead of Rice, and you are bang on with Neves. I think I hate it. Right, I'll mix it up a bit just to add a bit of spice. I'll go Sancho, Neves, and I'll just go Varane instead of Torres. I mean, I actually agree with what you said. I think they would address all those positions really well. I mean, obviously, the one position where you look at and you don't know who we can get is holding midfielder because it just does seem to be Rice. But if there was a chance for Neves, I think that would be such a good signing. I mean, obviously, the only issue is he would do long shots as much as Fred does. But the good thing
he scores them.
Scores. Yeah, he scores them. I completely agree. I think they would address those positions really well. Obviously, the caveat to all of this is we are owned by the Glazer family, and personally, the chances for me of them getting Sancho, Neves, and Varane is very, very slim.
1 out of 10.
Yeah, considering when I went to the game the other week that, I mean, there's still no Wi-Fi at Old Trafford. There's a bit of rust above where I sit, but, so I can't see them spending 90 million, but you never know. But, we're going to wrap it up there because we've been on for a bit. It's been a nice little chat, Cam. Little reunion chat. Obviously, there's all the Europa League stuff going on. I believe there is going to be a preview, and I think me and Robbie are doing something tomorrow. Ahmed will host a review on Wednesday night. Hopefully a happy review. I mean, I don't even know if we'll do a review if we lose, to be honest. Cheers for watching, mate. But yeah, that will be all. Obviously, follow Cam. He's a fellow kind of Ollie supporter against this flurry of abuse that we both get.
I backed the manager, man. I backed the manager.
Yeah, we've both weathered the storm, but obviously stay safe, everyone. Subscribe to Trafford Talk on YouTube, on Spotify, on Twitter, and let's hope we win this bloody final tomorrow.